Hello, huddlers. Welcome to a very special, what we're now calling Expert Huddle, where we bring in literally experts on particular topics that are interest to our CMO Huddles community. At the Super Huddle, we premiered something called the Strategy Lab. We had 3 different strategy labs going on. Not to diss any, 4 actually, not to diss any of the others, but many folks gave a big shout out to Bob Wright, who joined us at the Strategy Lab and ran a workshop on positioning. Bob is not your average consultant. As the founder of Firebrick Consulting and a self-described possibillion, he has helped hundreds of B2B tech companies clarify their positioning, differentiate in a crowded market, and build marketing strategies that actually drive growth. So today we're going deep on positioning, a little bit of portfolio evaluation. We may talk about AI washing and the make or break moves that can set a brand apart or sink it. So, and just in case you were wondering, if you want to meet Bob in person again, we at the Strategy Labs in Boston, New York, Durham, and Atlanta in February, and hopefully in April in San Francisco and San Jose. Okay, well, with that, welcome, Bob. How are you and where are you this fine day?
Oh, thank you, Drew. I really appreciate it. I always jump at the opportunity to talk about positioning. I'm actually in the Bay Area right now, and I am actually up in Healdsburg at the moment.
All right. So. Okay. Which for folks, if you don't know, that's sort of in the wine country area. Very, very nice place to be. So Bob, we talked about this, but just in case our audience has to leave early or we need to convince them to stay, let's start with the 3 sort of most common mistakes that you see companies make related to positioning. And if you can just list them, we can discuss them one by one.
Yeah, I think the number one mistake that I see of positioning is it's all about you. It's product centric. Your feature function decks are not moving the needle. So a conversation about how it works and the features and functions, that's the number one mistake I made. A product-centric narrative or story is not moving the needle. I think the second thing is marketing or the CEO going off in the corner room, coming out with the positioning, come run out, here's what it is. No alignment across the organization. Right. So what I see a lot is you end up with every deck, everybody's using a different deck. So misalignment, if you will. Nobody's around. It's one voice, if you will. And I would say the third thing is you don't own a problem. In other words, I always say sell the problem, not the product. So can you place the product in the context of a problem that you own and a problem that creates urgency in sales cycles? I think today's status quo, do nothing, for many of our sales cycles is the competition. So I would suggest you got to have it shift from a product. It's a product. The mistakes are product centric, no alignment. And the third thing is you don't articulate the problem you solve.
Okay, perfect. I want to go through each of those a little bit, dive in. Particularly founder-led companies, they're in love with their product. They think it's about the product. They might have come up through engineering. I see how this happens all the time. I'm wondering if we could help equip CMOs when they confront this to say, yes, we are selling a product, but that's not how you actually sell a product, is by just talking about it. So talk a little bit about why product-centric, egocentric positioning, it's about us, is so problematic.
Our buyers today are being inundated with tech vendors trying to sell stuff, and particularly executive buyers that own budgets don't want another tech vendor. So, and they frankly don't care how your product works. What's working today, the companies that are really driving growth and also category leadership are the companies that, again, own a problem, and they're putting the context of the feature functions in the context of a problem that their target buyer deeply cares about. So that's really what's winning today in our crowded markets that are inundated with a lot of, I would say, blah, blah, blah that's out there.
Okay, I got that. All right, so we're going to avoid blah blah blah, not talking about a product, and I mean the irony about whenever you do talk about a product and a feature in the product is it's so easy to replicate, right? You give a competition. Well, we got that too, so why are you talking to those folks?
Well,
Uh,
that's a great point. You don't want to get into a feature war. Feature function war is death knell for any technology vendor. So I think really what's being called for, the question is, why does your technology matter? Not how it works, but why do you matter? And specifically, the questions that need to be answered are why your product now? Not last year, not 5 years ago, but why now? What's the big problem you solve? Second, how can you uniquely solve it? What are the unique combination of differentiation or strength in your features that allow you to uniquely solve that problem? And then the third thing is how are you going to make my life better? Can you show me a promised land? But there's no conversation in there about how the product works. Again, it's all about why you matter. And the companies that are driving growth today and also driving category leadership all focus on why you matter versus how it works.
I love the show me the promised land notion. I just had to sort of repeat that just so it's in the record here. I feel like that uh, we get to this issue of CEO sort of they're connected to the first one. The CEO is
Mm-hmm.
ego connected to the product. They might have even written the initial code, who knows? But let's talk about this notion of the CEO creating a positioning and misalignment. I don't think we need to identify the problem. I think everybody listening has had that experience. The question is, how do you equip your customers, CEOs and CMOs, to understand both the problem and particularly for CMOs, how do they sort of get the CEO off of their, you aren't just, it doesn't matter that you're not the smartest person in the room, you're not a positioning expert.
Well, I think it goes down to revenue, right? I mean, what I typically do is so most of the CEOs. First off, I think the position has to be a CEO initiative. It has to be sponsored by the CEO. The process is run by marketing. So the CEO has to own this and see this as a significant lever to drive valuation and maximize revenue. Now, sometimes you have founder-led companies that are very technology oriented and they love their customers. What happens is the initial set of customers you buy, typically they're early adopters, the charter members, if you will, they'll buy on feature functions. But what happens is the market shifts inevitably. And at some point in that shift to your next set of buyers, that positioning no longer works. So part of the conversation is, look, there's been a shift in the marketplace today. We created this category using feature functions. The market's now being, all these competitors have swooped in. We have a different buyer type, and we have to shift the way we talk about our company in order for us to accelerate our growth and continue to build and strengthen our category leadership.
So one thing I feel like I think we can say with certainty, if you are a CMO who believes that you need to reposition the company and the CEO isn't embracing the initiative, do not move forward.
I think it's I, I would never do a positioning project unless the CEO is sitting in the room because that's a failure. The other thing is you have to have sales bought in. They have to have a seat at the table too. That's why one of the things that's really important for any CMO that is leading a positioning initiative, you make it a company initiative. Positioning is not a marketing initiative. Certainly, it'll fuel your marketing investments, but if you do positioning right, it's going to make a huge impact on sales cycles. It's going to improve your win-loss ratio through clear differentiation. It's going to help you command a premium ACV. It's going to set up the expansion motion, and it's going to create urgency to get those medium intent buyers off the dime from status quo. It's also going to help you set product priorities and valuation categories. So what's really the way we've seen position work really well is the CMO runs the executive team through a process. So you've got the product team there, the product head, you've got the revenue head, you got the CEO head, even customer service if they're responsible, particularly for expansion, and get them all aligned around a single position, if you will. And that's really so that's what I'm seeing is helping companies really drive consistency and force out in the marketplace.
And for the audience, we appreciate your questions. Just put them in chat. We'll get to them, but not necessarily in the next 10 minutes. So thank you. Keep those coming. And yeah, just put them in chat when you're ready. So I love the power of what you're describing when you get it right, which sort of gets to the third point that you made, which is about owning a problem. I think it would help at this moment to just give real world examples so people can see that what that looks like and sounds
Oh
like
yeah,
when you own a problem.
yeah, absolutely. So knowing owning a problem is in our crowded markets today, there's so much noise out there, and particularly a lot of noise about AI and our features and all this sort of thing. What's important to wake the market up, right, and distance yourself from all the other noise that's in the marketplace is have a viewpoint and own a problem. When I say own a problem and name the problem, so it could, for example, I'm working with an HCM customer client right now. We're having a conversation about the combination of these economic restructuring and AI inflection point requires the great workforce reset, right? We've got another client of ours, again, another AI client. There's an AI acceleration gap. You don't have the capabilities in your company to actually become an AI powered business. There's another client we're working where they're solving the margin erosion zone, right? Because of the combination of some higher costs that are happening out there in the marketplace, as well as higher capital costs, more uncertainty and geopolitical instability, and structurally higher costs is causing a margin erosion zone for so many companies. So those are examples of business problems, if you will. And what happens is typically companies are feeling it. Your executive bodies are feeling it. They just don't have a name for it. You give a name for it. Oh my God, yeah, we've got the acceleration gap, for Christ's sake. We can't go fast enough, right?
What I love about this is such a classic marketing, and it goes back to, I mean, the first product I worked at an agency in New York City was Listerine. Listerine invented this notion of halitosis. They created the disease that they cured. And if you look at a lot of drug advertising, many have created a disease and that they solve, and so that's all we're talking about here is halitosis. What's your halitosis? Which is fascinating to me that we could, that this is not a new concept, but it's really seemingly ignored consistently in B2B tech.
I think we're just so, I came out of product marketing, right, in sales. And I remember in product marketing, you spend all your time with, coming out, working with the engineering team and working with the customers. And what's the first thing you want to talk about when the product's ready? The feature and functions you've been working with. That's just totally wrong. Nobody cares. Those, as I mentioned, those feature function decks aren't working anymore. I think what's really working now today is have a viewpoint, own a problem in the marketplace, set the buying criteria up necessary to solve that problem, and show companies a promised land. So those are the things that are really working as far as what I'm seeing, as far as what's driving extraordinary, maximizing growth and valuation today.
So I want to go back to one of the things that you said earlier and it starts to get into specific challenges that CMOs face. They come to a company and this is the classic one. They had a product-led growth company. They were short sales cycles. People would come to the website, they'd purchase a product, in 3 months, and they then suddenly say, you know what, we've got to move up market. We've got to get to enterprise. But we don't want to lose this other folks over here. So we've got to suddenly take our company which we were really good at this, and now we have to become an enterprise company because we want to grow, continue to grow. That creates a really interesting positioning problem for companies. And
yeah, we're very familiar with that. Okay, I'm a successful PLG selling motion. Now, to drive maximize growth, I have to move up to the enterprise. But you don't want to sacrifice the goodness that you've done from the PLG motion. So how do you build a positioning that doesn't torpedo that revenue cash cow if you've got the issue you've got is in product led growth. It's all about how it works. You just want somebody to download the thing and try it. When you move to the enterprise, typically your enterprise executive buyer that owns a budget may not even be using the product. So you have to shift again to a value proposition, and also Like, for example, we took Calendly to the enterprise, we took Notion to the enterprise, we took Postman to the enterprise, all successful PLG companies. And it's a fundamental shift from how it works to go ahead and download it and try it out to a new conversation about what problem you're solving, again, at the enterprise. And you typically have to arm your advocates or champions with a conversation they can take to their boss. For example, Calendly. I got 2 or 3 people in my department using Calendly. We want to make an enterprise standard. You have to arm them with a conversation to go to their executive boss, who probably doesn't even use it, about why it's important to standardize and make and drive expansion across their either department or the entire company.
Interesting. And I appreciate those specific examples because I think it makes it easier for folks when they hear, oh yeah, I know Calendly, I use it as an individual, but we don't do it as a company, and that is an interesting challenge. The other part of this is the looking back part, and I'm just curious how, like, you don't want to stop selling the individuals because often, in so many cases, it's like lovable success. It was an individual driven thing that now is going enterprise. And so you don't want to kill that, if you will, PLG or those single users, even as you do it. So I'm curious how you do keep, you got the new position, we're going after the problem that we're solving. And what happens with the original product that made you successful?
Well, the PLG motion becomes a campaign that's driving specifically that specific selling motion to drive people to try it and sign up, right? But you have to make sure when you do the enterprise positioning, it doesn't torpedo the position you have down here at the lower level. But it's to me, it turns into a campaign, if you will, to drive specific revenue, and then you're shifted to an enterprise conversation out there with a larger value proposition.
Interesting. I think it's easier said than done, but I get it now. Is you're going to keep fueling over here, keep going, keep doing what you're doing on the campaign basis, but overall the positioning is going to change and it's going to speak to a broader audience.
It's like another similar motion. A lot of companies are legacy companies and they make a shift, right? Or they do acquisitions. The question is, you don't want to leave your customers behind. They're going, oh my God, you've gone from a single product company to a multi-product company. I only bought one of your products. Do you care about me? Are you making it as your investment? And what I care about being diluted, you can't leave your customers behind. So a lot of times it's leveraging the goodness and the heritage you've done into the larger conversation, if you will, about where the future is going. And we see the same thing that happens with companies that have a legacy install base. You can't leave these people behind. So you have to build a conversation about why this matters to you. This new value proposition matters to you.
So you and I have had some fun conversations about the difference between positioning and branding. This could have been the fourth mistake, right? And it's totally. Even when they they're out to hire a branding, quote, a branding firm, when they really need to think about positioning first, and they end up hiring a creative shop that really doesn't understand what positioning is. What's the damn difference between these two things, and why is it so important?
Yeah, I think most marketing executives understand the distinction between branding, positioning, and messaging. I think there's a lot of confusion at the executive level about the difference between the two. I make a very clear distinction between branding and positioning, particularly in our B2B tech world. And they're both important. Branding is the corporate identity. It's the tone of the communication. It's the experience. The branding experience could last, 5 years, 7 years, a long, long time. Positioning is very different. Positioning is focused on how do I drive a revenue growth? How do I give the reps a sales deck they can use to drive revenue growth? And how do I shape the category in my favor? So it's category shaping and driving sales cycles. It's very different from branding. Messaging is simply a communication of what the products offer. In the B2B world, right? It's the big positioning, small branding. In the B2C world, it's the big branding, small positioning, because we have considered purchases, longer sales cycles. I think they have to sit together. But one of the common mistakes I make is thinking a branding firm is going to give you a strong positioning. And I see that all the time. And I think they need to sit together. I think positioning actually informs the branding, and I think they need to support each other. But I don't know if any branding company is going to get the sales rep, the first call sales rep, that's actually going to move a revenue needle. So That's
Okay, I have
my
to ask.
personal opinion.
No, it's great, and I have to ask you a question because one of my favorite, and I don't know if this is a brand, a positioning, a messaging, but over the years, it's a P&G brand, Gain, and I know that their strategic positioning, I guess is the right word, is smell as proof of clean. And they have owned this for 40 years, and they'll show in every ad in one way or another, you'll be sniffing the clothes, and that is the proof of clean. And it's sort of a magical notion and a brilliant insight. It wasn't, does it look clean? Does it smell clean? And they built that brand on it. So is that a positioning?
Well, again, that's a B2C product. I think there's a
Right.
very big distinction between B2C and B2B. B2B
So,
is long sales cycles, considered purchases. We got buying groups now that are involved in here. And if there's a lot more risk involved, then I go and pick up a bottle of Tide and it doesn't work,
right.
right? That's low risk. If I make a decision about my cloud infrastructure and it doesn't work, I'm out of a job. So I feel like in the B2B world, positioning rises to the occasion as a CEO lever as the lever to actually move the needle in these very crowded markets where it's a very, very tight buying climate today. The other thing is too, we got AI coming down right now. What is every position we do has to have AI. And I feel like we have AI is not differentiation. It's just more noise. And the great AI is washing is above us. Everybody's got to have an AI position out there today, but the great AI washing is upon us. Everybody's sounding the same. So we're like in the old days of cloud when it first started. Well, I got cloud first. I got native cloud, blah, 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 blah. We're in a similar thing. It's just happening quicker and faster. So I just feel like, from my experience, there is a very clear. The other thing about branding and positioning, branding is going to last a lot longer. It's, like I said, your brand and your tagline may last 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Positioning is going to need to shift probably every 12, 18, 24 months because the market keeps changing and shifting. The competitors change, you add new features, the competitive landscape change, your buyers change. So the position actually needs to evolve in a shorter refresh cycle than a brand does.
Fascinating. Okay. I am not sure how many executives appreciate the difference between those two. It's certainly clear for me now. I do want to talk about AI washing, but I don't want to do that quite yet because we're going to get there. But you mentioned this notion of shaping the category, and immediately we go to the CEO says, I want to create a new category. And I think there's a distinction between those two ideas. And what do you say when the CEO says, we're doing something so different, we're in a new category, and how do you respond to that? And what's your counsel?
Well, there's I think one of the key central tenets of positioning is the category strategy. So the question is, are you going to play in an existing category? Are you going to try to morph an existing category? Or are you going to try to create a new category? So those are the three options you have. Creating a new category is not for the faint of heart. The problem with but the rewards are high. New category creators enjoy a significant multiple and valuations. The problem with a new category is it takes a lot of money to do it, a lot of time to do it. The other issue is with a category, there is no budget attached to that category.
Right.
So you have to steal budget from other categories. So it elongates sales cycles. Now, I don't think you can build a new category unless two things happen. Number one, there's a new problem that's occurred. I'm just using an example. This is a little one, but there's the tariff problem right now. We never had that. The tariff, variability problem or whatever, disruption problem. We never had that problem before. Maybe there is a new category of software designed specifically to solve that new issue that we've never had before. The other thing is technology. I think AI is creating new categories. There could be whole new ways of work that's being done and new categories that are being created. I also believe AI is disrupting every single category today. But most of my clients, what we advise them to do is, I tell you, a lot of our clients created a new category. And what happened is they were successful and a whole bunch of competitors came in and everybody looks the same. Their opportunity then is to set the goalposts again, right? And reshape the category. And that's what most of our clients are doing, is actually reshaping the category in their favor. So you may have the XYZ category, and you just put a modifier on the top of it. Oh, we've got the accelerated XYZ, right? To create a distinction between the, you know, all the other players in that category.
It's interesting because OpenAI created the category of LLMs, if you will. And it's fascinating to watch how they're jockeying right now. But it's like suddenly Claude Code launches and Claude Work or whatever, and that may very well be a morph of the category.
Could be.
It really is an interesting moment. Now it's a feature, but it also just changes the game in terms of what non-coders can do. So, okay, so we've covered category. It's worth it, but hard. And so you really have to have all your ducks in a row. But ideally, at minimum, as a repositioning, you want to shape the category. And I guess it's worth just putting a pin on that. And another example of shaping the category would be great, just so that folks really can feel this notion of what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think, like for example, we did a lot of work for Workday a couple of years ago, and we did their portfolio positioning, if you will. So they're 35 products now. We're known as a CHRO vendor. We have to shift the perception in the marketplace to also in the CFO, and Oracle really owns the CIO. So they needed a position that could speak equally to all three of those executives. The other thing is it was becoming a commodity market. Oracle, SAP, everybody, all the ERP vendors look the same. All the HCM vendors look the same. So they're getting into feature function. And then you have ServiceNow coming in and say, well, forget all that. We'll just do it. So what we do is we build a really strong position about how companies need to operate at an accelerated pace or a higher metabolic pace, right? Because we're at this inflection point, and the CFO, the CHRO, and the CIO own that great acceleration. And then we had some statistics that most companies are stuck in this acceleration gap. Most companies are bogged down in organizational lethargy. They don't have the skills for what's required today. And most CEOs think they're going to be irrelevant if they don't change, right? So what's required to close that acceleration gap? We had 7 success principles. Something like you got to continuously recalibrate your business by better plan, execute cycles, right? You have to consolidate. You have to, in an era of uncertainty, you have to have more data. So you have to have both financial, operational, and HR data all in one data set. Those sort of things became the success principles. So what we did is we identified the problem. We connected that to a set of buying criteria, success principles to solve that problem. Then we connected that to their differentiation. So now, and we built a case that, the old ERP model of the past won't close that acceleration gap. And while porting that ERP model to the cloud might lower your IT costs, again, it's not going to solve that business problem, which is the acceleration gap. So that's how, again, in a commodity market, you can shape the category, if you will. But again, it's a business conversation. I got this big acceleration gap. Who doesn't have that, right? You don't want to move faster. Here's the 5 things you got to do to move faster, which are business conversations, but it's connected, again, to their technology.
Okay. I appreciate that detail. Okay. Let's get to AI washing. And I've seen this a lot. There are a number of folks who are saying, the board is saying, and this is a really tricky one. It's a PE-backed firm. The PE or the VC says, you know what, those AI first firms are getting 12, 20 multiple, 50 multiples. And you're a software company right now. Let's get AI in there. Let's get AI in the headline. And you see it everywhere. Every single company is adding AI to whatever their tagline was, or they might have called it a positioning statement. How are you? And I know of one example of companies said that no, AI, the benefit of AI was sort of intelligence or smarter intelligence or something. So at least they tried to connect AI to a benefit as opposed to a feature. But how are you advising clients? Because this is a tricky look. A lot of these companies that you're repositioning. Yes, they want to grow the business, but they also want to just sell the business. So they are conscious of this multiple factor. Help.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things going on. Number one, you have to have an AI position in the marketplace. All your buyers is top of mind for your buyers. Everybody wants to know what's your AI story, what's your AI strategy. It is the big conversation today. The other thing is AI enjoys, larger valuations, AI-based companies, if you will. I think what's happened now is everybody just bolted on AI to their message,
Right.
and we've ended up with what I call the great AI washing. AI is happening faster than these other inflection points like cloud, et cetera, et cetera. This is happening very, very fast. You have to have a position in AI. The question is, what is the emphasis of AI in your story? And what value does it serve? So we're finding there's two things that really, really make a difference. Number one, name your AI. It's not generic AI, it's specialized AI. And if you look like Salesforce and even ServiceNow and some of these companies, they named their AI. And I'm not talking about a cute chatbot AI. It's like name your AI. It's specialized. It's purpose built. It's purpose built specifically for this market, for these buyers, for these processes, if you will. The second thing, if you have it, and that's why a lot of the legacy players actually have a leg up on the newer AI native companies, is data. The AI can't is useless, not useless. It's less valuable unless it's trained on. Really depends on the data it's trained on. A lot of legacy companies have a bunch of data. Name the data. Our specialized AI is trained on data you can't get anywhere else, the XYZ data. I'll give you an example. Coupa, legacy software vendor, brought a new CEO in. Oh, AI's here. Oh, what do we, they were the ones that founded that first, supplier data category, if you will, indirect supply data. And they broadened to all supply now. But at that time, what was the jewel that they had was they had customer permission supply data for like 20 years. So the CEO comes in and goes, oh my God, we have a data asset. This is our data moat. You can't get this data anywhere else. So we're going to create an AI, if you will, capability, but we're going to train it on this data. And we name the data. We call it the global economic data. But we connected to, again, a margin erosion zone that companies are having. Companies have a margin erosion zone. The good news is there's specialized AI that's come on the scene here, trained on a unique data set that can help you close that margin erosion zone. So, and then there were some other capabilities as well. So I would say what I'm seeing as far as separating from the pack is three things. Number one, what is the emphasis of AI? Is it frontal? Is it supporting feature? Two, name your AI if you can, or at least just call it purpose fit or specialized. The third thing is name the data, if that's an asset. And those are the three things. And then it can, again, connect it to the value or problem. But those are the things I'm seeing as helping companies separate from all this
Right.
AI sameness that's out there.
And just for a context standpoint, because you mentioned, look, Watson was in theory an AI, Einstein was in theory an AI, but those feel so dated now and problematic, if anything. I don't even know if Salesforce is using Einstein anymore. And IBM hasn't made as much noise with Watson of late. But I guess in both of those cases, they didn't name the data and they didn't name the purpose.
Well, I do think that AI, Salesforce has done a really good job of their AI. They named it, but I think, again, it depends on what your asset is, right? I don't know if their data was an actual asset, if you will. I think for some of our clients, the data is an asset. I would look at, again, what are you going to make the fight about? What are you going to differentiate on? And really, what's the emphasis of it? If you're an AI native company, you want AI native front and center, boom, boom, boom. But if you're another company, maybe you don't. Maybe AI is a supporting point for the larger conversation you're having out there. And it really depends on the emphasis. But please just don't put AI powered this, because that's just wallpaper now. And it looks like your AI is just a bolt on conversation.
Yeah. And if you grabbed 10 tech companies just randomly from Silicon Valley right now, and you took up what their statement was on their website, it would all be AI fueled, AI powered, AI assisted,
Totally.
AI free. And you go, I have no idea why
That's
I
right.
should continue looking. Okay, we have one question for you that I want to,
Right.
which is we have how do you go from product vision to positioning smoothly?
How do you go from product positioning smoothly?
I can give you some more detail from the question so you can think about this. Ownership by department, and also the best technique to get that alignment between vision and positioning early. So how do you position when category labels and segments are fluid or ambiguous?
And Drew,
Well,
if we're live,
go
this
ahead,
is my
Charles,
yeah.
jump
question.
in.
Happy to
Come
give
on,
you
Charles.
more context, Bob. So we're going through an exercise right now with the head of product and the CEO, founder-led company.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, in sort of the HCM ecosystem. So we're a
Mm-hmm.
workforce analytics
Yeah.
solution. And you talk about CEO's got to be in the room, but marketing's got to lead. The positioning, I think, is all being built right now around vision, product vision, and
Mm.
that is kind of the kickstart to whatever I would then bring in with positioning. So I would love to hear,
Yeah.
how do you go about making that
I
translation,
got it.
vision, which is us out, versus positioning, which has got to be problem finding?
Yeah, I think that I'll try to answer that question. I think first off, workforce analytics, very crowded marketplace. Okay, we're going to disrupt this category, right? The question is, what are you going to differentiate on? What's your secret sauce? What's your product features and capabilities that you think? Get really clear about that. Here's the top three things we think we do better than anybody else. It's unique IP. It's our secret sauce. We have a different model, different architecture, different capabilities that you can get anywhere else. So the question is, a lot of times you look inside and say, okay, we're going to make the fight about these three features, right? And then getting clear about that. And then the question is, okay, well, what problem do these features solve, right? How can we build a case that you need these features or you will go out of business? So what problem do these features solve? What executive level features do these problems solve? And name and articulate that problem. Now, the question is, sometimes what happens when you're an early company is all these capabilities aren't available yet, or they're in their nascent form. Take companies on a journey. And I always take companies on a journey. You can start introducing some of the features you have that you're coming out with, but still manage proper expectation. We got the great workforce reset, right? That requires a new set of workforce analytic capabilities, right? We're going to take you on a journey. First thing on that journey is you just got to get the data right? So that's the first thing we're going to do. And next stage, you're going to do this. Third stage, we're going to do this. Fourth stage, you have to do this. By the time they get to the fourth stage, you'll have that capability already available. It could be something you're coming out with next year, but allows you to introduce those capabilities. But again, put it in the context of the problem you're solving and get clients on a journey and say, look, make an investment in this platform. Every investment you make in it's going to be a leveraged investment to this vision in this future to solve today's big, hairy problem. Is that helpful?
It's definitely helpful. I also want a pro tip from you on, how would you go about evaluating, and maybe you do this for your clients, whether you're owning the problem or your competition's owning the problem, because sometimes it can get ambiguous for the client.
Yeah, what I do is I always say, that's a really great question. So the question is, can you own a room? How do you own a corner of the room in the category? The problem is in our categories, they're very crowded. And the issue is if your target buyer walks into the category, say the room you're sitting in, and you and all your competitors are sitting in the middle and you look the same, bad place to be, unless you're a ServiceNow or Salesforce or one of these guys, right? What they want is they want everything to look the same. So their positioning strategy is anytime a new competitor enters the category, you say, oh, we're going to have that in 18 months because they want everything to look the same. Because in the absence of any clear differentiation, what's the buyer going to do? Either they'll make no decision or they'll go with a brand name company. It's a bad place to be for most companies. So really what you want to do is you want to have you want to own a very distinct corner of the room. So for example, maybe you own the velocity corner of the room, right? And you say, look, all those other competitors, great competitors, that competitor XYZ, oh, they're a legacy competitor. They're built for another time. Competitor EFG, they're a good company. They sit over there. They're for a completely different kind of buyer, right? And my other third competitor, they solve a completely different problem. But you, Mr. and Ms. Buyer, your big issue is, I don't know, I'm just making this up, is velocity. And we sit over here and we have unique capabilities, right, for you to own velocity. So that's what I feel is really important in this position is what's the corner of the room you can own? What's the respective corners your competition's trying to own, right? And can you box them into smaller corners of the room and own a very clear, distinct corner of the room in the minds of your buyers?
Charles Groom, CMO was insightful. Thank you very much. Let's move to a big challenge that often happens after mergers, but there's
Oh
now,
yeah,
you went from a single product story to a broader portfolio one. Let's talk about portfolio level positioning and what that means, and how do you get through
that
that?
is a number one topic in our industry today. There's two clients that are coming to us, AI native clients, and the other ones that have product portfolio. Inevitably, in your journey as a tech company, you'll shift from a single product to a multi-product company. A lot of companies now are growing through acquisitions, so they end up with 4 or 5 or 6 products, and they end up as a house of brands a lot of times, right? So typically they'll have the brand, and then they'll have very good single product positioning. But what's missing is that portfolio positioning. What's the 1 + 1 = 3? And how you know you've got a problem that you don't have portfolio positioning is smaller competitors are eating your single product, killing they're competing really strongly, and you're losing deals to these fast moving competitors and some of your single product deals. There's no expansion between your products, no expansion motion, if you will, or revenue, or it's really, really difficult to do. So portfolio position is really, really a key lever if you're a portfolio, if you have a house of brands or multiple products. You need to answer what's the 1 + 1 = 3? What's the commonalities between these? Why did we buy all these companies? Why do we put together? What's the value to a customer to do it? And that needs to connect to the brand, but also set the context for the individual product position.
It's so interesting as I think about this. Where my mind went to was, okay, so I'm a company. I've just acquired another one. I have to deal with a portfolio. I have to deal with the integration. If I was a single solution competing with this now bigger product who has 18 months worth of integration, I'd be going after them. Maybe think about repositioning a little bit. Like, look what's going to happen to them. I wonder, is that a thing that companies have come to you and said,
Always.
talk about
Totally.
that?
Yeah, well, for example, we did the position for Cisco Secure, 17 companies coming together. When you walk to them, oh, I'm a Duo person, I'm a Kenna person. Nobody's a Cisco Secure person, right? And they had single product motions competing against single products. They didn't leverage the power of this combined portfolio, if you will. So what was being called for is the portfolio conversation about the big problem they saw across the portfolio. Now that shit might show up in Zero Trust, that might show up in some of these other, single products, if you will, but it actually helps differentiate those single product selling motions. And also, the larger conversation actually helps you get up to more of an executive level conversation because we have a portfolio of products designed to solve this executive level problem. You can start multiple places, if you will, but every investment you make into our platform, there's other use cases that you can also leverage.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the little guy, not the big guy. I'm just thinking about all of Cisco's competitors and for Cisco Secure.
Totally.
And like they could just go to town positioning their little, we're really good at this one thing. And yeah, you may want to, but like, component versus composite, if we're going to win on looking at this little thing. So it's an interesting, I get it for the big guy, but I also think if you're a smaller player, there's opportunity that these acquisitions create for you.
Yeah, and if you're a smaller player, you got to build a case why you would not go with good enough is okay, which is a portfolio. Why is
Right.
this so important? This product and the problem it solves so important. You have to go with a specialized modern solution.
So, a trigger that we have never talked about, or I haven't really thought about so your largest competitor suddenly buys somebody else. That could be a trigger moment to rethink your positioning and say, we have 18 months to either really disrupt these guys because it's going to take that long for the 1 + 1 = 3, right? You can talk
That's
about
right.
this bigger portfolio problem, but the truth is that company isn't going to be delivering it tomorrow.
Well, one of our clients, Informatica, was bought by a huge valuation. So this was the last standalone, if you will, solution in that market, and they saw it as an opportunity because their large competitor was just going to be so bogged down in integration issues and distracted by that. It provided them a really clear opportunity to come out with a fresh message and build a case why you would need a specialized vendor, particularly in context of AI, was in the data world, that you would be crazy to go with anybody else than a specialized purpose-built vendor that had these unique capabilities, right, or
Right.
strengths.
So interesting. So again, I think these triggers, and one of the things that this really helped me understand is branding is a longer term thing. You should be able to, if you do it right, you should be able to stick with that. And I've seen this mistake happen a lot where CMOs go in and they invest in changing the colors of the brand and the visual identity and all of these things in the first 6 months. And the problem is positioning, not brand. And so but I think it's important that positioning, and it's worse when the previous CMO had just rebranded. So now you've rebranded twice in 2 years. It's like, no, brand is a thing that should be able to endure for 5 years. Positioning is something that you can always be on top of. And you may have acquired somebody, a competitor may have acquired. So you always have to be thinking about that as something you revisit, as you said, every 18 months. So that's in reverse triggers. Again, it's not just what you do, but what happens out there in the marketplace. So what are, and we probably covered this, but what are the telltale signs that a company's positioning
Yeah.
needs a refresh?
Yeah. Every sales rep's using a different deck.
That never happens, Bob.
You put your logo on your website. You take your logo and put it on your competitor's website. Everybody looks the same. I would say long sales cycles or no decisions, right? Your win-loss ratio is horrible. You're getting your butt kicked by a particular competitor. And I think the other one that's happening now is this AI washing. We don't have a strong AI strategy / AI positioning because our market is, and buyers are demanding that we have that. The other thing is I see a lot of times it is acquisitions, right? And what happens when you do acquisitions is everybody's bemoaning the past. Oh, it was great. If you do position, it can get people involved and invested in a shared future and get them all aligned on a shared vision and future and get them off of bemoaning the past, but focused on creating a future. So acquisitions a lot of times is also a trigger event. And the last one is a new competitor comes into your marketplace.
Interesting. I'm wondering, is it in one of the places where acquisitions often fail is that there's a poor integration culturally between the two companies, and they were connected and felt really good about the last one. How much of in positioning, we never talk about the word culture, where in brand we talk about culture a lot. How in the positioning exercise, because it won't stick, right? The positioning won't stick if the cultures don't come together as well to buy in on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how that fits into your work, if at
Hold
all.
on, I'm gonna answer that while I step over here.
Okay.
Excuse me.
No problem.
Something great. I feel like first off, if you do positioning really, really well, it can be a motivator for your employees. Like we're working with a company right now, they just had that riff. And they say, man, we need to get our people motivated again. You come up with a really good story. It's like, oh, wow, that's why we're doing this. That's why I spend all my time at work. It's a larger mission. What's the larger conversation and purpose, if you will, for this? Sometimes what we do in our position, we actually create a thing called a manifesto or our beliefs. And we may take some of the best of the two cultures, right, and put them in here. And it could be things, we create fans, not users. We sell outcomes, not software. We have a belief about this market that, the old 15-year-old software is not going to, whatever that is, right?
Right.
But it could be a set of beliefs, if you will, and a manifesto that you may not even show your customers, but it really gives some juice to the combined culture or the culture of what the company's about. And again, I find the positioning has also not only an impact in sales cycles and category, but also for employees as well. It can be a really, really strong motivator and get people excited again.
So I do want to encourage anybody who has coming to our strategy lab in Boston, New York, Durham, and Atlanta. Definitely bring your position because we'll be workshopping those with Bob.
Yeah.
And that will be a fun thing. And Bob has given you the criteria for what a good positioning looks like, and we'll come back to you with some more notes on that based on our conversation. I have to ask you one other real quick question because drinking your own champagne is something that's important to all of us. How is Firebrick positioned?
Well, we're the world's worst marketing organization. No,
Okay.
how we position ourselves is very, very specialized. We do one thing and one thing only. All we are is for B2B tech, and specifically our core competency is positioning. We position well over 400 B2B tech companies. We have a process that is the institutionalized knowledge of us working in this narrow expertise over and over again. That's how we position ourselves. And we saw, and we just have I feel like it's a craft. If you're a CMO, you might do positioning once a year, maybe twice a year. You only do a positioning handful of times in a career. We've done it 400 times. Yep. Like
That's
I said, the only thing
expertise.
I can talk about is positioning. So don't ask me about anything else.
All
Hey
right.
Bob,
Well, I won't.
Firebrick or Firebrand?
It's Firebrick.
Not Firebrand. Come on,
Yeah.
Alan. No brand.
I know. He's trying to be clever there, but it's okay. All right. So I feel like this has been a masterclass. I really appreciate this. It's funny, I've been in this business a long time, and I admit to occasionally confusing the difference between these things. So I'm sure that others share that. So I think we have some more clarity. For folks listening who want to dig in deeper, first of all, what's the easiest way to connect with you?
Oh, it's Bob at firebk.com.
Firebk.com.
BK.
All right.
Firebk.com.
Okay. One last question, and it's okay to repeat yourself if you need to. If you could give one piece of positioning advice to every B2B CMO, what would it be?
It's just going to be a longer answer than you wanted. Then I'll get to it. I think right now is such an exciting time for us to be in the B2B tech industry. We have AI that's coming that's going to create and disrupt every organization. At the same time, we got a complete economic restructuring that's happening where companies have to now operate in a world of uncertainty and navigate disruption they've never had to before. The old steady state process world is gone. Both those provide an opening for B2B tech companies. I know we're in a tight buying climate right now, but those two market forces are going to drive significant investment in B2B technology that we can all enjoy that uplift. I would say the number one, I keep repeating myself, sell the problem, not the product. Executive buyers do not care about how your product works, and they don't want any more technology. So sell the problem, not the product.
Awesome. All right, Bob, thank you so much for joining us.